Hey, hi, thank you so much for clicking into this video. I'm Christopher. I'm the founder of Krigen.AI. We're a sales and marketing solutions company. And I post videos here to teach you guys everything you need to know about sales, marketing, and entrepreneurship, specifically for growing entrepreneurs, right? So, this is the book that I'm going to be talking about today. All of the tactics that are instilled into this book, I'll be explaining in detail. And just to show you guys the very first aspect of this book, which is called Never Split the Difference, is the first chapter here, and this in itself shows how interesting this entire book looks like. So I'm going to cover the first chapter, which is Life is Negotiation. In Life is Negotiation, what the author Chris Voss, who's a very renowned FBI hostage negotiator, what he says is there are essentially two types of minds within the human brain. One is the logical, deliberate, and slow part of your mind, and the other is more of the instinctive and emotional side of your mind, which is sometimes irrational as well. And whatever decisions the logical side of your mind is making, it's the information to make those decisions is being driven from system one, which is your irrational emotional side of your mind. So whenever you're approaching a negotiation, always make sure that you have the emotional side of things covered, and the prospect is comfortable with you, and they don't have any fears with regards to the entire arrangement, and they trust you, right? You want to make sure that you instill some level of emotional security before you go ahead and start engaging on that particular deal, right? And the rest of the concepts, I've covered it in detail over my video. Make sure to watch it, and please subscribe if you like my video, and feel free to like and also comment on my channel on what kind of videos you want to watch next. The second chapter talks about being a mirror. A good negotiator prepares going in to be ready for possible surprises. A great negotiator aims to use his skills to reveal the surprises he is certain to find. Don't commit to assumptions. Instead, view them as hypotheses and use the negotiation to trust them rigorously. People who view negotiations as a battle of arguments become overwhelmed by voices in their head. Negotiation is not an act of battle, it's a process of discovery. The goal is to uncover as much information as possible. To quiet the voices in your head, make sure your sole and all encompassing focus is on the other person and what they have to say. Slow it down. Going too fast is one of the mistakes that all negotiators are prone to making. If you are too much in a hurry, people can feel that they are not being heard. You risk undermining rapport and trust you built. Put a smile on your face. When people are in a positive frame of mind, they think more quickly, and they are more likely to collaborate and problem solve instead of fight and resist. Positivity creates mental agility in both of you. So essentially, the entire chapter talks about how an expert would approach negotiation, right? Of course, if you take in an amateur negotiator, and most of them, especially in the sales world, are familiar with the concept of your prospect or your counterpart that you're negotiating with throwing certain surprises your way, right? Now, a good negotiator is able to um, you know go through his way within the conversation with his prospect, and reveal these surprises, that these we call it known surprises, right? So you already have a set of objections or surprises that you might receive from your prospect. A good negotiator is ready to use his skills to reveal the surprises that he is certain to find. Don't commit to assumptions, instead view them as hypotheses. So you are not going to take in any assumptions before you go into a negotiation or you go into a deal. There are no kind of assumptions that you're going to take into the picture. You're not going to commit to anything, and you're going to use all of the information that you have as hypothesis, and use the negotiation to test each of these hypotheses rigorously, right? Negotiation is a battle of arguments, and being overwhelmed by a lot of voices in your head. So this is talking about how you want to only pay attention to your counterpart that you're negotiating with, or your prospect that you're negotiating with, because there's so many voices that are going to be going inside of your head, and you're not going to be able to pay attention to what the prospect's actual underlying challenges are, and what their actual problems are that they're trying to solve through this deal, right? And of course, once you get to know that problem, you're like a black swan. I mean, the problem is like a black swan, right? It's hidden, and you want to be able to figure that out, and we'll cover that in the next chapters. Don't feel their pain, label it. Imagine yourself in your counterpart situation. The beauty of empathy is that it doesn't demand that you agree with the other person's idea. But by acknowledging the other person's situation, you immediately convey that you are listening. And once they know that you are listening, they may tell you something that you can use. The reasons why a counterpart will not make an agreement with you are often more powerful than why they will make a deal. So focus first on clearing the barriers to agreement. Denying barriers or negative influences, give them credence and get them into the open. Pause. After you label a barrier or a mirror statement, let it sink in. Don't worry, the other party will fill the silence. Label your counterpart's fears to diffuse their power. We all want to talk about the happy stuff, but remember, the faster you interrupt action in your counterpart's amygdala, the part of the brain that generates fear, the faster you generate feelings of safety, well-being, and trust. List the worst things that the other party could say about you and say them before the other person can. Performing an accusation audit in advance helps prepare you to head off negative dynamics before they take root. And because these accusations often sound exaggerated when said aloud, speaking them will encourage the other person to claim that quite the opposite is true. Remember, you're dealing with a person who wants to be appreciated and understood, so use labels to reinforce and encourage positive perceptions and dynamics, right? The entire concept of labeling is to make the prospect or the counterpart that you're dealing with feel understood, right? What happens when they feel understood? Essentially, when the person feels understood, they're going to lower their guard down. Their fear of engaging with you is going to vanish because you're approaching it from the same place as them, and they're going to look at you as a partner who's helping you close the deal, or take them through the deal through completion, right? And this is more on the sales front, how things would look like, right? And of course, any kind of negotiation you're doing, it's going to be very similar. Whichever counterpart that you're negotiating with, you want to make sure that you're number one, you're labeling whatever problems or whatever issues that they're facing, and you're paraphrasing it back to them in order to build trust and establish trust. Beware yes, master no. Break the habit of attempting to get people to say yes. Being pushed for yes makes people defensive. Our love of hearing yes makes us blind to the defensiveness we ourselves feel when someone is pushing us to say yes, right? It's like telecaller that's trying to call you on the phone. He's very smart, and he's trying to close the deal with you, and he's making you say yes and yes and yes and yes to a known amount of questions. We've all been through that, right? No is not failure. We have learned that no is an anti-yes and therefore a word to be avoided at all costs, but it really often just means wait, or I am not comfortable with that. Learn how to hear it clearly. It is not the end of the negotiation, but the beginning. Yes is the final goal of a negotiation, but don't aim for it at the start. Asking someone for a yes too quickly in a conversation, do you like to drink water, Mr. Smith, like that cold caller who's trying to close the deal through the phone, right? Um, uh, Negotiate in their world. Persuasion is not about bright or smooth or forceful you are. It's about the other party convincing themselves that the solution you want is their own idea. So don't beat them with logic or brute force. Ask them questions that open paths to your goals. It is not about you. It is if a potential business partner is ignoring you, contact them with a clear and concise, no-oriented question that suggests that you are ready to walk away. Have you given up on this project? It works wonders, right? It's the entire concept is about instilling or trying to take out a no out of your prospect instead of trying to have them agree to whatever you're putting forth as a yes right away. That doesn't work. You want to be able to instill a yes at the very end of the conversation, but until then you're only going to come across no's, right? Trigger the two words, that's right. Creating unconditional positive regard opens the door to changing thoughts and behaviors. Humans have an innate urge towards socially constructive behavior. The more a person feels understood and positively affirmed in that understanding, the more likely that urge for constructive behavior will take hold. That's right is better than yes. Strive for it. Reaching that's right in a negotiation creates breakthrough. Use a summary to trigger a that's right. The building blocks of a good summary are a label combined with paraphrasing. Identify, re-articulate, and emotionally affirm um, the world according to. Trigger a that's right with a summary. So a good summary is a combination of re-articulating the meaning of what is said plus the acknowledgement of the emotions underlying that meaning. So paraphrasing plus labeling is equal to summary. Listen and repeat the word according to them, right? Now, the most important insight out of this chapter is to try always getting that's right instead of you're right? Because what essentially happens when you're trying to reach a that's right is any particular scenario within the negotiation, be it anything that you want them to agree to, and if you put it forth in a casual manner, of course they are going to say, hey, yeah, you're right, we understand, but we'll still need time to get back to you, right? But if as a negotiator you are able to bring them to a point of agreement where they are saying that all of the facts that you're presenting, the labeling through labeling and paraphrasing, of course that's another concept in itself, but all of the facts that you're presenting are right, and I feel that's the right thing to do. So tell me how to go ahead, right? You kind of immediately become the expert there. So you want to always try instilling or taking out that's right out of that conversation, whatever you are engaging or negotiating around. Bend their reality. All negotiations are defined by a network of subterranean desires and needs. Don't let yourself fool by the surface. Once you know that the splitting the difference is wearing one black and one brown shoe, so don't compromise. Meeting halfway often leads to bad deals for both sides, right? So the previous sticker actually had a story about how Chris Voss was trying to negotiate with a Haitian kidnapper, and his goal was actually to go out and massacre people, and he wasn't really in it to take in, or rob the bank or take their money, right? So end of the day, people had to die because they went in with the perception that this kidnapper's only goal is to escape, take the money and escape, right? So you never know, you never know what their underlying needs are, right? And in the business world you find this all the time. They may have a special interest that they will never talk to you about, right? Because it makes them vulnerable, right? So that's what Chris Voss is talking about. Create the illusion of control, right? Now what do I mean by creating the illusion of control? Don't try to force your opponent to admit that you are right. Aggressive confrontation is the enemy of constructive negotiation. Ask calibrated questions and start with the words how or what by implicitly asking the other party for help. These questions will give your counterpart an illusion of control and will inspire them to speak at length, revealing important information. Avoid questions that can be answered with yes or tiny pieces of information. These require little thought and inspire the human need for reciprocity. You will be expected to give something back. Don't ask questions that start with why unless you want your counterpart to defend a goal that serves you. Why is always an accusation in any language. Okay, accusation in any language. Calibrate your questions to point your counterpart towards solving your problem. This will encourage them to expend their energy on devising a solution. Bite your tongue. When you are attacked in a negotiation, pause and avoid angry emotional reactions. Instead, ask your counterpart a calibrated questions. There is always a team on the other side. If you are not influencing those behind the table, you are vulnerable. So creating the illusion of control, this entire chapter is about making sure that you are able to use calibrated questions properly, right? Now, what calibrated questions allow you to do with your counterpart is to help your counterpart that you are negotiating with come up with the solution themselves, right? For example, if they give you a price point that that doesn't work for you, and they tell you that, hey, my services are $1,000, or if you as a salesperson are asking them, hey, I need you to pay me $1,000 for this, and they tell you that I only have, say, $500. You don't go ahead and tell them, hey, I can't do $500, not possible at all. And of course that's going to bring them down from that's going to create an illusion of that they are not in control of the conversation, right? And they immediately they get fear. So you want to be able to ask them about, hey, see, and that's where we use labeling. We tell them, see, I understand this is where you're coming from. I know that from your standpoint, this is your budget. How am I supposed to make this work for you, right? My actual pricing is at $1,000. How am I supposed to make this work for you? You tell me, how am I supposed to make this work for you? And that at that point of time, the prospect gets the illusion of control, that they believe that they are able to take you to the end of the goal, to the solution, and you're kind of navigating through the solution. Again, it goes back to the fact that a great negotiator aims to use his skills to reveal the surprises he is certain to find. And once he understands that where the prospect is trying to redirect that customer towards in terms of a solution, he's able to exactly address that, right? And he's able to let the prospect navigate him through the solution of the entire problem by ensuring that he gives them an illusion of control. Ask calibrated questions. How questions, and ask them again and again. Asking how keeps your counterparts engaged but off balance. Answering the questions will give them the illusion of control. It will also lead them to contemplate your problems while making demand. Use how questions to shape the negotiating environment. You do this by using how am I supposed to do this as a gentle version of no. This will subtly push your counterpart to search for other solutions. Your solution, other solution, your solution, and very often it will get them to bid against themselves. Don't just pay attention to the people you are negotiating with directly. Always identify the motivation of the players behind the table. You can do so by asking how a deal will affect everybody else and how on board they are. Follow the 7-38-55% rule by paying close attention to tone of voice and body language. And in consequence, between the words, incongruence between the words and non-verbal signs will show when your counterpart is lying or uncomfortable with the deal. The real yes or no conflict. Text is tested with the rule of three. Use calibrated questions, summaries, and labels to get your counterpart to reaffirm their agreement at least 3 times. It really has to. It's really hard to repeatedly lie or fake conviction. A person's use of pronouns often deep insights. There's a lot of stuff. So this is a little deep. Going to the entire negotiating process. This is how to spot liars, right? And what the author is talking about here is when you're in a negotiating environment and you spot someone lying about something, you ask them calibrated questions in terms of how, around the facts of that particular matter. You ask them calibrated questions around that, and you ask them multiple times, right? And essentially they break through. But yeah, of course, that's very advanced level negotiation. You don't have to go till there, and you don't have to play in that extent. But yes, the last two chapters are bargain hard and finding the black swan. Under bargain hard, you identify your counterpart's negotiating style. Once you know whether they are an accommodator, assertive, or an analyst, you'll know the correct way to approach them. Now, what's the difference between the accommodator, assertive, or analyst? Accommodator or analyst is definitely someone who negotiates very specifically with the numbers in mind, is very factually driven. Assertive is someone who is more straightforward, and 80% of overall humans are accommodators, right? They try to accommodate and ask 80. I would say 60 to 70%, and the rest are analysts. And assertive people are very few, because assertiveness doesn't generally work in the negotiating world. If you didn't already know, a friendly smiling face is much more better for you to be able to convert your opportunities than you approaching this on a more straightforward level, right? So you want to be able to play the game when you're entering the realms of negotiation. So just a nugget out there. Prepare. Whenever the pressure is on, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your highest level of preparation. For design and ambitions, but legitimate goals, and then come out of the labels, calibrated questions and responses, and this is more about the actual process around it. Get ready to take a punch, take a punch. Kick-ass negotiators usually lead with an extreme anchor to knock off your game. If you're not ready, you will flee to your maximum without a fight. So prepare your dodging tactics to avoid getting sucked into the compromise traps. Prepare an Ackerman plan before you head into the weeds of bargaining. You will need a plan of extreme anchor, calibrated questions, and well-defined offers. Remember 65, 85, 95, 100. Decreasing raises and ending on non-round numbers will get your counterpart to believe that he's squeezing you for all you're worth, and when you really getting to the number you want. Set boundaries and learn to take a punch or punch back without anger. The guy across the table is not the problem. The situation is. That's super important. So what this entire chapter essentially talks about is, number one is preparing. Before you enter into any negotiating environment, you want to be prepared. You want to be ready for any kind of anchors that the other party is going to throw in, to take in some advantage. You want to also make sure that you're leveraging things like labels, calibrated questions, and you're also carefully listening to the kind of response that you're going to receive. Set boundaries and learn to take a punch during the negotiation process without any anger, right? Or punch back without any anger, right? Because at the end of the day, the guy across the table is not the problem. The issues they're coming up with is not the problem. The actual problem is what you're looking to solve, right? The final and last and final chapter of, again, Never Split the Difference by Voss is Find the Black Swan. And let what you know, your known knowns guide you but not blind you. Every case is new, so remain flexible and adaptable. Remember the Griffin Bank crisis? No hostage takers had killed a hostage on deadline until he did. Black swans are leverage multipliers. Remember 3 types of leverage. Positive, the ability to give someone what they want. Negative, the ability to hurt someone. And normative, using your counterpart norm to bring them around. Work to understand the other side's religion, and by religion it means By religion, it essentially means um, what their beliefs are. So digging into their worldviews, exactly their worldviews, inherently implies moving beyond the negotiating table and into the life, emotion, and otherwise of your counterpart. That's where the black swan lies. Review everything you hear from your counterpart. You will not hear everything the first time, so double check. Compare notes with team members. Use backup listeners who are jobs is to listen between the lines. They will hear things you may say. There's very advanced negotiation. You're dealing in mergers and ledgers, and if you're involved in a very I'd say in the negotiation world, and you're if you're a sales guy, you don't need all of this, right? And that's all I'm trying to tell you. So exploit the similarity principle. People are more apt to concede to someone they share a cultural similarity with. So dig for what makes them tick, and show them that you share common ground. When someone seems irrational or crazy, they most likely aren't. uh, Faced with the situation, search for constraints, hidden desires, and bad information. Get FaceTime with your counterpart. 10 minutes of FaceTime often reveals more than days of research. Pay special attention to your counterpart's verbal and non-verbal communication at unguarded moments, at the beginning and the end of the session, or when someone says something out of the line, right? So you want to find the black swan, and the black swan is essentially going to be that you of course have known knowns that you go into the negotiating table with, but there are a few unknowns, right? You don't really know about whatever is what the prospects also doesn't know about, and you have to kind of figure all of that out. So the black swan is essentially that aspect of finding that unknown underneath the prospect, right? Whatever issues or whatever unknown aspects are that they haven't revealed yet. That's what finding the black swan is all about, right? And their leverage multipliers, essentially, you have the ability to get a lot more leverage if you use a black swan during the negotiation process, because you know exactly what their problem is, right? And yes, of course, you want to be able to actually search for their constraints, their hidden desires, and any bad information as well that might lead to you having a bad deal out of the entire negotiating process. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But overall, the black swan is about you really digging in to understand what their intentions are. You approaching them by considering who or what religion they're from. And when I say religion, I'm talking about their belief system, right? What they really believe in. And you talk to them from there, you have a much better chance of establishing trust. And all of this will come into play when you start negotiating. And to negotiate, you need to build pipeline. You need to have enough demos, and you need to come to contract level. That's when the negotiation conversation starts. So if you're looking to learn more about how to prospect and how to build a pipeline, then here's a link to my previous video you should watch, where I cover all of the aspects around sales. I was in sales for the last more than a half a decade. I was selling softwares. Right now, I run my own SaaS company, and I manage the entire growth side of things myself. So you can feel free to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more content from me. I'm a growing entrepreneur. It's been just 1 year since I've started my business, and I'm growing, and I'm selling, and I'm also sharing the knowledge that I have with you guys. So look forward to having a great community where we can get to interact soon. And please post it in the comments whatever you want me to cover next. I'll do it. I have a bunch of other business books that I want to cover down the line, but I definitely hope you found benefit from the entire Never Split the Difference book. So look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Bye bye.